The pills went into Sunday first, because Sunday's the day my sister chokes. I was at the kitchen counter with the 7-day organizer open in front of me, pressing tablet through the little plastic doors with my thumbnail, when the noise in the next room dropped the way a room drops when somebody taps a glass. My father's co-workers, 30 years of them, were packed into a house that smelled like sheet cake and warm shrimp. Out the window over the sink, the new travel trailer sat in the driveway, with the dealer plate still in the back glass, and a bow on the hitch. His voice came through the wall. Everybody keeps asking what I'm proudest of. Ice moved in a glass. Somebody laughed too early. 30 years, and I'll tell you, I invested in this family. Every dime of it. I put Monday in. The edge of my thumbnail had gone white. He said the next part slower, the way he says things he's rehearsed in the truck. And of every investment my wife and I ever made, she's the only one that never paid a cent back. The laugh got to me before the sentence did. Then I came around the doorframe and saw where he was pointing. My sister was by the window in her chair, in the good cardigan I'd buttoned on her at 4 o'clock, in the exact position I had left her in 2 hours before. Nobody had turned her. Nobody had shifted the cushion, the one patched with silver duct tape, because a new one is $400. And my father says she doesn't notice. Her hands lay in her lap. Her eyes went across the room, face to face to face, and stopped on mine and stayed there. 15 years of being told she doesn't take anything in, and she was the only person in that room who would not look away from me. My back teeth found each other and stayed there. I pressed Tuesday shut until the plastic clicked. My mother filled the pause. She reached to the shelf behind the chair, took down the orange notebook I'd bought, and held it open over her head so the back rows could see, and fanned the pages with her thumb. "Don't let her show you this one," she said. "It's scribbles. She just likes us to call it writing." She dropped it back on the shelf, face down. Somebody clapped. My father squeezed my shoulder on his way to the cooler and said, "Tori's all right. Can't hold on to a man or a dollar, but she shows up. Somebody's got to." "Thanks, Dad," I said. 29 years old, a hospital badge still in my back pocket, from a night shift I'd walked out of 8 hours earlier, and I said thanks. I had 6 years of bank records on the phone in my hand that would have emptied that room in 90 seconds. But a scene gets you told not to come back, and if I couldn't come back, nobody in that house was turning my sister at 2 in the morning. So I snapped the Saturday door shut on the organizer. I drove home, sat in my own driveway until the windshield fogged over, then opened my banking app and deleted one recurring payment. The one that had gone out on the 1st of December for 6 years. That was November. Nobody at that party knew there was already a file in the county building with their address typed on the front of it. In March, the county sent one envelope to that house, the kind somebody has to sign for, and my mother got most of the way through reading the name printed on it out loud, before my father's hand came down flat on the table. I wasn't there. I heard about it late, and from the wrong person. But I know exactly which table. It's the one where I do the organizer, every week for 6 years. My name is Tori Alcott. I'm 29. I work nights in a hospital rehab unit, 3 12-hour shifts, Friday through Sunday, and the other 4 evenings, I let myself in a door I don't have a key to. If you have ever been the person who shows up and gets thanked with a joke, stay with me all the way to the end of this one. It does not end where you think, and leave me a comment when you get there. I read them. The letter came on a Tuesday, the 10th of March, at 10 past 11 in the morning. My mother told me about it 2 days later as a complaint about the carrier, because he made her sign twice. She signed on the little screen with the wrong finger, and it came out looking like a line. Then she stood in the doorway, with the storm door still open on her back, and opened the envelope right there, because she opens everything right there, and she read the top of it out loud, the way you read a stranger's name off a package that got put in the wrong box. Notice of assessed value, county assessor. Real property, parcel number, and then the line that says who it belongs to. She got the first name out fine. She got most of the way through the middle name, the one that came out of her own mother, the one she picked herself in a hospital in 1992, and stopped in the middle of it. The storm door was still open. Cold came in over her ankles. In the front room, 10 feet behind her, my sister was in her chair by the window, where I had parked her the night before, facing the yard, and neither of them said anything for long enough that my mother remembered the silence and mentioned it to me later, still angry, still about the carrier. Then she read the rest of it standing up. She told me she read it twice. The second page was the payment coupon, and she read that out too, down to the due date. My father came back from the pharmacy at 11:40 with a white bag in his fist, and the truck still running in the driveway. My mother handed it to him in the kitchen. He read standing at the head of the table, where the 7-day organizer I had filled the night before was sitting out with the lid up on Thursday. There was a date printed on it, a transfer date, September of 2017. His hand came down flat on the table, and the organizer jumped a quarter of an inch, and 2 of the little doors popped open, and a tablet went across the wood, and off the edge and under the radiator, where it is probably still. My mother said she watched it roll. She said she started to ask him something and did not finish the sentence. He folded the letter into thirds. He put it in his shirt pocket, buttoned the pocket, and told her it was a clerical thing, that the county does this, that people at the county are lazy and put down whatever is easiest. Then he looked at the clock over the stove. At 12 exactly, he went out to the mailbox at the end of the drive, the way he has gone out at 12, exactly for 8 years. In shirt sleeves, no coat, hands empty. My mother watched him from the window, over the sink. He stood at the box longer than a man stands at an empty box, because there was a second envelope in it. And when he came back up the drive, his hands were still empty. Between that November and that March, nothing in that house changed, except the things that wear out. I got there at 5 on the Tuesday, same as every Monday through Thursday, and the tape on the cushion had lifted at the front corner where her heel rides. Silver duct tape, 3 layers of it now, 1 for each year since the seat cracked. I got her forward against my shoulder, took the weight, and worked a fresh strip down with my thumb. That is how the years come back to me, in hand movements. June of 2011, the state trooper at the door at 4 in the morning, and me on the stairs in a middle school gym shirt, 14 years old, watching my mother hold the door frame. 19 my sister was. 2 weeks out from a summer job. Smooth the tape down, press the edge. 2013, the 4 of us carrying boxes into my grandfather's house, because his was the one with the wide hall and no step at the back door. February of 2017, the hospital bed in the dining room and him going in it, and the way he kept turning his head toward my sister's chair instead of toward his own daughter. Pressed the corner, set her back. She was looking at the shelf where the orange notebook lives. I put it on her tray and put the pen in her hand, and she wrote 4 numbers, slowly, the way she does everything. And then the pen stopped. From the doorway, my mother said the man from the county had already called the house twice that week, and that she knew exactly which one he was. She didn't say what he wanted. The suction tubing lives in the closet, off the back hall, behind the winter coats. In a plastic bin, I labeled myself. I was down on one knee going through it when my knuckles hit a box that shouldn't have been in there. Cardboard, the size of a cutting board. A manufacturer's seal across the flap, unbroken. A blue and white sticker on the end with a barcode, a 30-day trial period, and a return by date printed in a font that had already started to fade. An eye gaze communication device, a screen that speaks for a person who cannot make sound. The return by date on it was from a spring 8 years ago. I ran my thumb along the seal without meaning to. It was still tacky at one end. Down the hall, the television went up 2 notches, and somebody laughed at something on it, and I stayed on that knee, with my hand flat on a box that had been sitting 8 feet from her chair for 8 years. I sat back on my heel with the tubing in my lap and did not open the box, because it is not my house. I want to be exact about that, because everything after this depends on it. I don't live there. I have never had a key. I am a person who is let in 4 evenings a week by people who can decide on any Tuesday that I am not coming in anymore. So I put the coats back the way they hang. I put the bin square against the wall. In the front room, the man on that banner was asleep in his recliner, with a folded letter buttoned into his shirt pocket, and he did not know yet what was coming up the road toward him. A county file, with my sister's parcel number on the front of it. The next evening I sat down at that table at 7, with coffee I made myself. I said my mother had told me about the letter. I said the owner line had a name on it. That wasn't his. My mother was at the stove with her back to me. She said, "Your grandfather was very specific at the time." I asked what that meant. She turned the burner down. She said pork loin had gone up 80 cents a pound since Christmas, and that the store had stopped doing the Thursday markdown. And did I know they'd moved the pharmacy counter to the back, and that the girl there never says a word. My father came in and poured a cup and did not sit. He talked about a wheel bearing on the trailer. He asked me if I'd been getting my hours. He said the word hours, like it was a kindness he was doing me. Behind him, on the shelf, the orange notebook was still face down, where my mother had put it in November. My mother told me the next day that at 12 he had set his cup in the sink, and stood up and gone out the front door in shirt sleeves, without saying where. She told it to me as part of the pork loin. In that house, a man walking to the mailbox at noon in March with no coat on was the most ordinary thing there was. Monday I wasn't on the schedule. I drove downtown and parked behind the county building and stood in a line of 4 people at a counter with a laminated sign that said, "Records." The woman behind it asked me for a name or a parcel number. I gave her the street address. She typed it with 2 fingers and turned her monitor half an inch. Not toward me, just enough. Executor's deed. Filed the 11th of September, 2017. Grantee, 1 person. My sister's name, spelled the way it is on her birth certificate, middle name and all. The grantor was the estate. The person who walked the paperwork in and signed the filing sheet at the bottom was my father. I asked her to say it again. She said it again, in the same voice she'd have used for a fence permit. My hands were on the counter, and the counter was cold, and I left them there. Then she said it was a public record, that anyone could pull it, that it had been sitting there the whole time, 8 years, for the price of a search and $1 a page. She asked me if I wanted the will attached to it. She said it like she was asking if I wanted a receipt. The will was 2 pages, and one of them mattered. My grandfather left the house to his granddaughter, named her by her full name and by the date of her injury, so there could be no argument about which grandchild he meant, and so that no one could say later that he hadn't known what he was doing. His own daughter is named in that document once, in the line that skips her. He put it on paper in a lawyer's office in the fall of 2016, 4 months before he died, while my mother was telling the neighbors she'd be the one to inherit, and my father was pricing gravel for a second driveway, and the man who took that document to the counter, who paid the filing fee, who signed his own name at the bottom of the sheet, and got the stamped copy back and drove it home, did every step of it correctly, lawfully, in order. Then he stood in that kitchen for 8 years and said, "Our house." He is still doing it. He did it Sunday, in front of 140 people, under a banner with his face on it. Somewhere in that house is a stamped copy, with his signature on it, filed where a man files a thing he has decided is finished. I went back that evening at 5 and did the cushion, the water, the 6 o'clock and the 9 o'clock, in that order, the way I do. Then I closed her door. I put the alphabet board on her tray and squared it up. She has 42 letters and symbols on it, laminated, that I cut and taped myself when she was 22 and everyone had stopped trying. 2 blinks means yes. She has been giving people 2 blinks for 15 years and watching them decide it was a reflex. I asked her exactly 1 question. "Did you know this house is in your name?" The furnace came on under the floor. Her eyes went to the door, then to the window, then came back to me and held. Twice. I sat there on the edge of that bed with my hands on my knees and did not move for a while. Then I heard the storm door and my father's boots on the mat and his voice in the kitchen asking what was for dinner. "Somebody's going to have to explain it to me," I said, quiet to her, "and it isn't going to happen at that table." In the kitchen, the front door pulled shut, and my father's boots came down twice on the mat. The refrigerator opened, closed. I stayed on the floor beside her chair with my hand flat on the armrest until the sound of him settled into a chair leg, dragging over tile. At 6:10, the visiting nurse's car came up the drive. She had a folder under her arm and her keys already threaded between her fingers. She stopped at the bedroom doorway. She did not come in. She looked at my sister the way you look at a room you have already measured, then set the folder against the door frame and signed. Date, initials, a box for continued need. 90 seconds, and the pen went back into her coat. Same as last time, she said. 60 days. Down the back hall there is a box on the second shelf, still sealed. I had found it an hour before and left it exactly where it sat. There's a communication device in that closet, I said. Never opened. Who decides she doesn't get one? She glanced down the hall, then past me, toward the front room. Your dad handles that side of it, she said. You'd have to ask him. Her shoes went down the steps at a good speed. The storm door caught the wind and rang once against its frame. My sister kept watching the empty doorway, where the nurse had stood. She watches doorways the way other people watch weather. 15 years in that chair have taught her that everything which changes her life arrives from a hallway and leaves before she can spell a word at it. I stood there a while with my hands empty. Down the hall, the closet door was still shut. Somebody had said no to this. Somebody with a signature, a form number, a desk with a chair pushed under it. There was a person on that line, and I knew there was a person on that line. What they had written underneath it, I did not know yet. The drawer in her nightstand held 4 things. A hairbrush, our grandfather's rosary, a rubber band ball she built one-handed over 2 winters, and a stack of check stubs held together with a binder clip. $200, the first of the month, deposited to a spending account with her name on it and my father's underneath. I went back 6 stubs. 200. 200. 200. I stopped at 20 because my thumb had started to shake and because she was watching me do it. This is everything that comes in? 2 blinks. Outside, the light over the driveway had come on early. Her cushion was still out on the concrete where I had left it after the party. The good foam one, the one that goes under a person who cannot shift her own weight. And my silver tape crossed the seam in 3 bands, like a bandage laid over a bandage. $400 new. I had priced it in a parking lot in November with the engine running. It leaned against the wheel well of a pickup truck that had not been in that driveway in October. Dealer plate still in the back window, wax still holding the porch light in one long white stripe down the door. A person who sits 14 hours a day sits on whatever is under her. Foam breaks down, skin goes after it. I have watched what that does to strangers in a rehab wing, and I have charted it and turned people every 2 hours to keep it from starting. I counted the bands of tape again. Behind me the tray knocked once, then once more. When I turned, she was not looking at me at all. She was looking at the truck. Through the wall the key fob chirped twice, and the headlights came on in the dark and lit the tape up bright as a bandage on a person. Monday. The break room at work is empty at 2 in the morning, which is the only good thing about the third 12-hour shift in a row. I sat with a coffee I did not drink and read the rules for a benefit that pays a disabled adult on a work record. Hers, not my father's, hers. She ran a register and bagged groceries from the summer she turned 17 until the June she turned 19. And under the credit rules, for someone hurt that young, 2 years behind a belt was enough. The check was built out of her own, standing up. $1,740 a month. My father has received it on her behalf since 2012. Not her guardian, nothing that grand. A payee. A name on a line at a federal office. A person trusted to take the money in and spend it on her. $200 a month reaches her account. I opened the calculator on my phone and ran the window I could prove, 2018 through now, at the number it is today, and got a total and cleared it and ran it again, because there was no chance I had typed it correctly. $147,840 near enough. The third time I went 1 digit at a time, out loud, in a room with a vending machine humming behind me. Same number, 4 numbers. She had written 4 numbers on a page in that orange notebook in March, with me standing right beside her, and I had watched her hand instead of the page, and put the pen away when it stopped, and told her she had done enough for one night. 1, 7, 4, 0. She had been trying to tell me for months. The coffee went cold in my hand and I let it. My chest did something small and mechanical, twice like a machine testing itself. Down the corridor, a call bell went off, and somebody's shoes answered it. That is the whole job. A bell rings, a person comes. Money moves the same way when it is set up right, out of one account and into the life of the person it belongs to, and for 14 years it had been ringing in a house where nobody came. He did not know I had finally done the arithmetic. He had a few weeks left of not knowing, and he was going to spend them shopping for floor mats. Monday I came at 5 with her laundry folded, and she would not let me start the machine. The tray knocked twice under her hand. Her chin went up and over, toward the shelf beside the window. 6 notebooks. Orange covers, spiral at the top, the kind with the dates already printed inside. 1 page for every day of the year. I bought the first at a drugstore in December 2020 because the wrapping tore open easily with one hand, and after that, it became the thing I brought every Christmas because she reached for it before she reached for anything else. I took them down in order. Every page carries a date somebody else printed. Under the date, there is either her handwriting or nothing. She came. She came. She came. Then 3 pages empty. Then 4 days of her handwriting. Then 3 empty again. I turned faster. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, blank. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, blank. All the way back through a year I could not remember well. And into the year before that, and the one before that. And it never broke once, because it was not a pattern of hers at all. It was my shift schedule. She had been writing down the days I existed in this house since the January, after that first Christmas. 5 years of it, weighing about as much as a bag of sugar. Nobody taught her to do that. Nobody in that house has ever asked her a question that needed more than 2 blinks to answer. So she had gone and built the one thing a person builds when she is not believed. A record with dates in it that she did not write. I put them back exactly the way they had been standing. Then I took them down again and held them in my lap. She let me. That is the part I keep. She watched me handle 5 years of her own handwriting, and she let me easily, the way you let someone hold a thing that is already promised to somebody else. She had decided long ago who those notebooks were for. It was not me. The drawer beside the stove sticks. You have to lift and pull at once, which I know because I have been the one putting the thermometer back in it for 4 years. Under the batteries and the coupon envelope, there was a booklet of timesheets. Carbon copies, yellow underneath, the top sheets torn off and gone somewhere else. 32 hours a week, $16.50 an hour. My mother's signature at the bottom. In the approver's box, my brother's initials, the same ones he puts on Christmas cards. Bath, meal prep, toileting, transfer assist, medication reminders, Monday through Thursday. Those are my hours. 5 to 10, 4 nights a week. The shampoo with the pump she can hear coming. The towel warmed on the radiator first because cold makes her jaw lock. I went back through by the year. The numbers never moved. 32, 32, 32. 6 years of Thursdays. The first week of July 2023 was filled in complete. Every box, signed, approved, submitted. My hand went flat on the counter. I had the total before I finished it, because 32 hours at that rate is a number a person can carry in her head, and 6 years of it is a number nobody should have to carry anywhere. $164,736 drawn for baths I gave. The carbon pages had gone soft at the corners from handling. Somebody had touched them a great many times. Out in the drive, the garage door started up and filled the kitchen with that grinding sound it makes at the halfway point, and headlights swung across the ceiling and stopped. The photo board was still up beside the kitchen doorway. Somebody printed 40 pictures, for the party in November and pinned them to cork in the shape of a heart. And 3 weeks later, nobody had taken it down. Because taking it down would mean deciding where the pictures went. I stood in front of it with the booklet still in my other hand. Second row from the bottom, left side. My mother, on a deck rail in a windbreaker. Glass up, laughing at whoever held the camera. A bay behind her full of ice going blue at the edges, the way it does in the pictures. They sell you. Someone had written the caption along the mat in silver marker. Alaska, July 2023. I lifted the frame off its pin. I carried it down the back hall and planned nothing on the way, which is how I know I meant it. My sister sat in the chair by the lamp with the letterboard in her lap, her hair still damp on one side from the night before. I held the picture where she could see it. She did not look at the picture. She looked at my face straight on, the way she does when she wants the part I am not saying, and she held it, and her eyes went wet before mine did. Then she looked down at the board, and her hand did not move at all. The lamp buzzed. Down the hall the television came on, loud, then softer, the way a person turns a thing down when they hear their own house go quiet at the other end of it. I wiped her cheek with my sleeve, because the tissues were in the front room, and I was not going out there yet. I set the frame face down on her dresser. It stayed there. Nobody turned it over, and nobody in that house knew yet that the week printed under that photograph had already been written down somewhere else, in her handwriting, on a page with the date printed at the top. Thursday is pot roast and the good plates, because Thursday is the night my brother eats here. I had asked about the shower again. A seat, a bar, a threshold that a chair can cross without two people lifting. My father let the question sit until he had cut everything on his plate. You keep pouring money into that room, he said. She's a line item. You don't renovate a bad investment. She was at the table. She is always at the table. Her board was propped against the salt cellar, and her finger was on the 4th row, one letter into a word. The finger stayed up. It stayed up while my mother passed the green beans across her, while my brother laughed at something on his phone screen, while my father reached for the bread. Not one head turned. Nobody at that table looked at the person the sentence was about, because looking would have made her a person, and they had spent years arranging the room so that she was furniture that needed batteries. I watched a woman who cannot speak decide whether to finish the word. She lowered her hand into her lap and left it there. I set my fork down on the edge of my plate quietly, the way you set something down in a room where someone is sleeping. She's sitting right there, I said. She heard every word of that. Sunday. My mother came out of the office with a page still warm from the printer, a grid of nights with my name in the left column and a signature line at the bottom. Just so everyone knows what they're responsible for, she said. Sign it and I'll copy it. The pen was already uncapped on the counter, turned to face me. I'm not signing that, I said, and I'm not paying for one more thing in this house. The room went very still. My mother capped the pen and put it back in the cup by the phone and smoothed the page flat with the side of her hand. Twice, as though the wrinkle in it were the problem. Nobody followed me to the car. She said my name twice from the porch, in the voice she uses on the phone at work. Warm, for other people's benefit. And the porch light went off before I reached the road. At my apartment, I took the folder out of the closet and laid 6 receipts on the table under the lamp and put them in an envelope and wrote nothing on the outside. Monday at the hospital, I found the speech therapist eating lunch at the far end of the cafeteria. I asked her a hypothetical. Say a patient uses a letterboard. Say she has used one for 15 years, spells full sentences, counts, keeps records. What would a person like that qualify for, and who would have to ask? She put her sandwich down and looked at me for a second longer than the question needed. Somebody has been telling you she can't be evaluated, she said. That was never a thing a family got to decide. The transfer I killed on my phone the night of the party was 90 seconds of work, and I had thought about it exactly that long. The bank keeps records longer than I do. Late November, on my kitchen floor with the laptop open, I scrolled back to where the standing order was created. November 2019, Set once. Running ever since. Quiet as a pilot light. Not groceries, not the pharmacy, the county. Property tax on the house. $4,050 a year. Near enough. 6 times. December 2019 through December 2024. $24,300 out of a rehab tech's account. Paid in a lobby with a numbered ticket in my hand. Every year on my lunch break. The treasurer's office prints a receipt for that. It has a line near the bottom, and the line says remitter. And under remitter it says my name. 6 of them. 1 a year. All in that envelope now on my table. I had never once mentioned it. You do not mention the thing that keeps a roof over your sister, because the mentioning turns it into a debt somebody has to feel, and the person who would have felt it cannot leave the room. My mother has never seen one. My brother has never seen one. Not a soul in that town has seen one. My father took the mail in every day for 6 years. The next installment came due on the 1st of December. There was exactly one person in that house who knew whose name sat on the last 6 receipts, and I knew precisely who he was. What he would do with 3 weeks of knowing it alone, I had no idea. The county's envelope is yellow. You can see it from the end of the driveway, which I believe is the point. It came the 2nd week of January, delinquent across the front, in a typeface a machine chose. $4,050, plus the penalty line, plus interest accruing daily, plus a date after which other language starts. It sat on the kitchen counter 3 days, under the fruit bowl. Then it moved to the shelf by the door. Then it was in his coat, and I know it was in his coat because I hung the coat up on the 11th of January, and the corner of it came out of the inside pocket, and I pushed it back in. 3 weeks. A man who spent 30 years telling other families which window to stand in front of, who could have driven it downtown in 11 minutes any weekday before 4:30, and who did not, because at that counter they pull the parcel up and turn the screen and read you the name on the account before they take your money. He was the only person alive who could hear that name and know who had paid it 6 times. And he was the only person in the world who could not say so out loud. He put the coat back on and went to work on the truck instead, and the envelope rode around in that pocket while the interest ran, and none of them yet understood that a county does not send yellow paper forever. It doesn't. In February, the yellow ones stopped and a white one came, certified, with a barcode running down the side like a spine. I carried it to the county building on a Tuesday morning because I wanted a person to say the words out loud where I could hear them. The clerk at the 3rd window had reading glasses pushed up into gray hair. She turned the statement toward herself, typed the parcel number, and read me the balance, without any change in her face. Then I asked the only question I had come there to ask, not who owed it, how the office decides where to send it. She answered the way you answer a question about weather. Tax statements go to the owner of record at the parcel address. Every cycle. The system pulls the name off the recorded deed and prints it on the envelope. Nobody chooses it. Nobody reviews it. If a deed is recorded in September, the next cycle carries the new name, and so does every cycle after that, until the deed changes again. I asked when our parcel last changed. She turned the monitor a few degrees so I could see it too. September 2017. 8 years. 96 months of envelopes with my sister's name printed in the corner of each one, sliding through the same slot, in the same door, of the same house, where she sat in the front room, with a blanket over her knees, while my father told company that she didn't follow paperwork. And every one of those days, at 12 o'clock, a man had walked out to the mailbox. My whole life I had thought that was a habit. Standing at that window, I understood it was a shift. My phone went off against my ribs. The screen said Dad. The clerk looked up, patient, and asked if I wanted a minute to take that. I let it ring out. The second envelope was still on the hall table when I got home, propped against the fruit bowl, the way you prop a thing you have decided is not yours. Nobody had opened it. My mother had touched it enough to move it twice. State letterhead. Half a page. A paragraph, written by somebody who has written it 400 times. The Office of the State's Protection, an advocacy organization, conducts periodic reviews of the records of adults who receive benefits through a representative. Files are drawn by random sampling from the statewide pool. Her file had come up in the current draw. A review specialist would visit the residence to speak with the beneficiary. Wednesday, 10 o'clock. Please have available the account records for the representative, receipts for expenditures, and documentation of care hours. I read it 3 times looking for the sentence that says, "Who reported us?" There isn't one. There was nothing to report. That letter had been produced by a computer that pulled a number out of a list of numbers, and the number belonged to a woman in a wheelchair who has never in her life filed a complaint against anybody. Nobody in that house had picked up a phone. Not one of us. That is the part I keep going back to. Everything that came after, they built themselves, board by board, over 8 years, while believing the house had no door. All the state did was knock on the schedule it had always kept. I set the letter face up on the table, where my father takes his coffee, and I went down the back hall. By Tuesday night, every person under that roof knew who was coming and what hour she would arrive. Not one of us knew what she would ask first. My mother told me he was up at 6 on Wednesday. She said she heard the good pot come down off the top shelf, the one that only appears at Christmas, and heard him run water through it twice to get the dust out. By the time I got there at 9, the front room had been rearranged. The recliner moved back. The end table cleared of pill bottles. My mother wiped the baseboards with a dish towel and then wiped them again. The review specialist came at 10 exactly. Canvas bag, flat shoes, a woman near 60 with a pen already in her hand. My father pulled a chair out for her and held it. He poured. He sat down across from her with his elbows on the table and his hands folded, and he talked for 11 minutes without being asked a single question. "She can't manage for herself," he said. "Not money, not appointments, none of it. My wife and I gave up our lives for her. 15 years. Nobody hands those back." The specialist wrote. He let his voice drop then, the way he does at funerals. He reached over and put his hand on my sister's shoulder. "And she doesn't communicate," he said. "You understand? That's the hardest part for a father." 6 orange notebooks sat on the shelf 5 feet from his elbow. Dates printed down the margins. 5 years of them. Spines out. The letterboard lay on the armrest of her chair under her right hand, where it had been since 8 that morning, because he had wheeled her in himself and set it there without looking at it. She wrote something down and turned the page. She did not glance at the shelf. She did not ask a follow-up. She said, "I see," twice, in the same tone both times, and then she asked whether there was a room where she and my sister could sit alone. He smiled and said, "Of course, take the front room, take all the time you need." He believed the hard part had just gone by him. She had not yet asked her first question. They used the front room with the door pushed to. I sat on the floor at the end of the back hall, because from there you can hear everything that goes through that doorway. She did not raise her voice for my sister. That is the thing I want to say about her. She pulled a chair around so they were at the same height, and she lifted the letterboard off the armrest and set it flat on the tray, square, the way you set a plate down for somebody you expect to eat. Then she asked how much money my sister receives each month. There was a long quiet. The furnace came on under the floor, then the sound of a knuckle on laminate. Slow, 1 letter at a time with the pauses where her hand shakes. 200. The specialist said the number back to her out loud to confirm it. Not louder than normal speech. Just clear. Another quiet, longer than the first. Then the tapping started again, and it went on so long that I stopped breathing where I sat. EIGHTYEARS. And the specialist said, "Thank you, I'm writing that down." I heard the bag unzip. I heard the notebook come out, and the cover fold back, and the pen click once. 15 years of doctors, aides, churchwomen, cousins at Thanksgiving, 100 people in and out of that front room, and not one of them had ever asked my sister a question, and then sat there in the silence long enough for her to finish answering it. She has always had an answer. Nobody had ever paid the price of waiting for it. I put my hand over my mouth in that hallway, and I held it there. Down the hall a chair leg scraped, and my father's voice came up bright and helpful, asking through the door if they were about finished in there. They were not finished. 11 days later, the accounting came. A representative who receives benefits for another adult keeps a separate account and reconciles it. And when a review opens, the office pulls that account and prints it. Not a summary. The lines. I saw it because the copy came to the house addressed to the representative, and my mother left it on the counter under the bread. $1,740 in on the 3rd of the month. $200 out to the beneficiary within the week. Then the next month. 1,740 in, 200 out. The number nudges up every January. The 200 never does. 96 lines. 8 years of a page, where only one column ever moves, printed one after another, until the pattern stops looking like a bank record and starts looking like a heartbeat monitor for a person nobody was treating. And after the 200, the rest is not missing. That is what I had gotten wrong for months. It never went anywhere exotic. It went into the grocery run, and the propane, and the truck payment, and the satellite package, and the second freezer in the garage, into a household of 4 adults who ate every night off a plate that a woman in the front room had paid for, and had been given $200 a month to watch them eat. 18,000 a year, near enough, folded into the ordinary. The office asked, in writing, for receipts showing which expenditures were made for the benefit of the beneficiary. They gave him 30 days to answer that. He had already used 9 of them, not opening the envelope. The photographs were the part nobody had to go looking for. My mother has never once set an album to private. She joined that site in 2016 for the recipes, and she has posted every trip, every casserole, every sunset, out a car window, since, in public, to an audience of 211 people, most of them from church. The specialist assistant did not subpoena anything. I was at the sink with a towel in my hands when the assistant opened a browser at the kitchen table with my mother watching and scrolled to July 2023. The ship's rail, the gray water, the glacier at a distance, blue at the base, my mother in a windbreaker holding a paper cup with both hands, grinning, and the caption under it saying, "First vacation in 9 years." 7 photographs, 7 days, dates stamped by the platform itself. The assistant screenshotted each one and laid them next to the timesheets for the same week. 32 hours, bathing, feeding, transferring, range of motion, signed at the bottom by the caregiver of record. And while that was happening on a laptop in her own kitchen, my mother was at the front window telling our neighbor across the fence, in a voice pitched for the whole street, that she had not taken a single day off in 9 years, and that the people who criticize a family like ours have no idea. She said it twice. She likes to say things twice. The assistant turned the laptop screen a little so the glare came off it, and my mother waved at the neighbor and came back in and asked if anyone wanted coffee. She still believed the photographs were her good week. The photographs would have been arguable. A cruise can be explained. A cousin can be borrowed, a neighbor invented, an aide invented, a week reconstructed by 4 people who agree on a story before the interview. The logs cannot. Her employer runs its scheduling and timekeeping through a system that requires a login, and that system writes a line every time somebody touches it. Who signed in? From which terminal? At what minute? What record they opened? They pulled hers for the 6 years. My mother, the caregiver, was sitting at the office terminal on Front Street, entering hours for other people's clients at 8:12 in the morning, at 8:40, at 9:05, on the same mornings. Her own timesheets say she was in a bathroom 14 miles away, bathing her daughter and washing her daughter's hair. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 91 of them. One woman, 2 places at the same minute, recorded by nobody's diary and nobody's memory, but by the employer's own machine, which had been writing it all down for 6 years for reasons that had nothing to do with us. The notebooks only corroborate. That is the exact word the man from Program Integrity used, and he used it while looking at the shelf. 6 notebooks of blank Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays are supporting material. They can be argued with. Somebody can say a caregiver was too busy to write. The login history is what kills it, because it was not made by anyone in this family, and no one in this family knew it existed. And in the approver field, on every one of those records, sat the short form initials issued to my brother when they gave him a code and a chair in that office. He came home that evening whistling and asked what was for dinner. The nurse forms came next, and they came in a stack with a rubber band around them. 24 of them, one every 60 days, 4 years, each one attesting that a licensed visiting nurse had observed the beneficiary in the home, assessed skin integrity and positioning, and found the care plan appropriately followed. Signature, license number, date, all in the same blue pen. The specialist did not accuse the nurse of anything. She called and asked her to describe the room. I know how the call went because the nurse repeated it to my mother afterward in the driveway, furious, with her car door open. Where does the bed sit in relation to the window? Which side do you approach from? Where is the lift anchored? She said the bed was on the window wall, and you approach from the left. The bed has been on the interior wall since they rearranged that room in 2019, because the window wall has the radiator. And you approach from the right, because on the left there is a closet door that does not clear the rail. Anyone who has been in that room for 90 seconds knows it. Anyone who has been in that room for 90 seconds, 4 times a year, for 4 years, cannot get it backwards. 24 signatures, 90 seconds each, in a doorway, with a clipboard held against a forearm. She drove off and the storm door was still swinging, and my mother stood in the driveway holding a dish towel, working out for the first time what it means when a person who has been signing your paperwork starts telling the story from the other side of the fence. In May, the letter came that changed what was for dinner. The agency suspended his authority to receive her benefits pending the outcome of the review. Not a charge, not a finding. One paragraph, dry as gravel, saying funds would be redirected to an interim arrangement while the matter was resolved, effective with the June payment. He read it standing up twice, and then he sat down at the kitchen table and pulled my mother's spending notebook toward him. The cheap one with the wire spiral, where she writes the gas and the groceries. He went backwards through it, page by page, with a pen he never put to paper. I watched him from the doorway, and I understood what he was doing. He was looking for the month where the household stops needing $1,740. There isn't one. There hasn't been one since 2018. Nobody yelled that night. My brother went out to the truck and sat in it. My mother started a load of laundry at 9:40 and stood in front of the machine for the whole cycle. And for the first time in 8 years, 4 adults went to bed in that house, without knowing what the following month was going to run on. My sister slept through all of it. Down the hall, door open, the way she likes it. The estate attorney read the will out loud in June, because my father asked him to, in front of everyone, certain the paper would clear him. It runs 2 pages. The man had a farm equipment dealership and a lawyer he trusted, and he was not vague about anything in his life. The house on the parcel goes to his granddaughter, named in full, middle name included. And then the clause that follows it, which the attorney read twice at my father's request. It was the grandfather's wish and direction that the value of the property be applied to the care of his granddaughter and to the means of her communication. His own daughter is named once in that document, in the paragraph that passes over her. The attorney set the page down and said, in the flat way of a man who has read 100 of these, that the language was unusually specific for the year it was drafted, and that in his experience, specific language of that kind is written by someone who has already been told no by the family. My father was the executor. He filed it inside the window. He recorded the deed with the county on the 11th of September, correctly, initialed at the bottom of every page. Then he drove the 40 minutes home, hung his coat on the hook, and told his wife and his son and both his daughters that the old man had left the house to nobody in particular, and it would all get sorted out in time. 8 years of noon mail, 1 afternoon of silence to start it. And in the storage closet off the back hall, on the second shelf, under a folded moving blanket, there is a box with a factory seal on it that nobody in that room had mentioned yet. I didn't open that closet the night I found it. I stood in this back hall with one hand flat on the doorframe, close enough to smell mothballs, and cold plaster and let the box stay where it was. Second shelf, blanket over it, seal on. In the kitchen, my father was getting to his feet. He always stands to talk. 4 feet of table, 6 people, and he rises like there's a microphone waiting. Everything I did, he said, I did for this family. He pointed at my mother and said he had kept a roof over her head for 35 years. He pointed at my brother and said he had taught him a trade, which was not true in any way I could name. He pointed down the hall at the room with the door left open and said he had given up his life for that room. Then he pointed at me. He held it there a beat longer than the others. And not one of you has ever said thank you. My mother nodded along with her chin, the way she nods in church, half a second behind every phrase. My brother had his phone below the table edge. The attorney's letter was still on the floor by the chair leg, where it had come down 2 hours before, folded open, letterhead up. Nobody had picked it up. Nobody was going to. Cold came off the window glass onto the side of my face. My thumbnail was in my palm again. I opened my hand. I took my keys off the hook. Coat, bag, and at the door, I turned around once, because it was true. I paid those taxes 6 times, I said. I'm not paying a 7th. The county prints its delinquent list in the newspaper every spring. It has to. It's in the statute, and it runs in agate type inside the second section. In 2026, it ran on the 4th of April, and everybody in that town reads it. 4 columns. Parcel number, service address, amount owed, name of record owner. The service address is the house my father has lived in since 2013. The amount was $4,110, which is what happens when a payment that has arrived quietly for 6 years stops, and nobody in the house has ever seen a bill for it. And the name of record owner, printed between a shuttered laundromat and a vacant lot on Vine, is my sister's. First name, middle name, last name. The full legal string off the 2017 deed, in the same 6-point type as the laundromat. That's the paper that ran the photograph of his retirement dinner the November before. Page 11, 4 columns wide, the whole table with their glasses up. My mother said he worked out what had happened on a Wednesday. He didn't say a word to any of them. What he did was change the time he got the mail. For 8 years, the man walked to the box at noon, in front of the neighbors, on purpose. Now he went at 10, when the street is empty, and the retired couple across the way are at physical therapy, and he could have the whole stack under his arm and be back through the screen door in 11 seconds. I watched him do it twice from my car. He was hiding a mailbox from a town that had read the list at breakfast. That was the first time that address ran in print, with a name beside it that wasn't his. The second time would not be in agate, and it would not be his daughter's name in the column. My mother's termination letter came in a windowed envelope on the 18th of May and ran a page and a half. The contract for paid caregiving services was terminated effective immediately. An overpayment determination had been issued in the amount of $164,736, covering July 2019 through June 2025. She had the right to appeal within 60 days, and a box at the bottom explained how. She did not appeal. What she did was call the number at the bottom, and the recovery unit told her what recovery units tell everybody, that a repayment schedule may be proposed by the individual, and that it has to be signed by hand, not typed, with the amount she is proposing to pay each month, and that every month after it, she has to mail in a signed acknowledgement of the balance. She set up the card table in the front room to do it, the one with the wobbling leg that comes out for jigsaw puzzles in January. I brought her the box of her own file copies from the hall closet because she asked me to, and because they were hers to have. 6 years of timesheets in rubber-banded stacks. 32 hours a week. $16.50 an hour. Her handwriting on every line. The same round-pressed capitals. The 7s she crosses because her father crossed his. And then the sheet in front of her, in that identical hand. September, $100. October, $100. Line after line, 68 of them, before she stopped counting out loud. She never wrote a word that was true on those timesheets. Every single stroke on this one, she meant. She was on the fourth page before she put the pen down and asked me what the date was. He told my mother all of it that night at the kitchen counter, and she told me on the phone, angry at the wrong person, the way she always is. My brother's meeting was on a Thursday at 10 in a conference room with a whiteboard nobody had erased. 4 people in it. Only one sat on his side of the table, and she was there for the agency, not for him. He had been the approving signature. That's all it ever was. A checkbox and a name in a field marked reviewer. 4 times a year. On a document he never read, because his mother handed it to him at the kitchen counter with the pen already uncapped. They told him the signing authority was revoked, that his credential had been pulled from the system that morning, that he was being referred, that the agency had begun exclusion proceedings, and that if the referral held, his name would go on the federal exclusion list. They explained what the list is. It is public. Any employer who bills a federal health program checks it before hire. And the check is a free search box that takes 4 seconds. He sat with his hands on his knees. He asked one question. Not whether he could appeal. Not what a referral meant. Not how much would be asked back from his mother. He asked whether it would come up if somebody just looked up his name. The woman from the agency said yes. The list is indexed. Usually the second or third result. He nodded like a man being told the price of something he had already decided to buy. Then he asked her to write the name of the list on a piece of paper, so he'd know what he was looking at when he searched it himself. In the truck, in the lot, which is where he did. The estate attorney's office called my cell twice that afternoon. I knew whose office it was before the second ring from the exchange. I didn't know yet what he wanted to read to me. It was one sentence out of my grandfather's will. He had read it in that living room in June, with all of them sitting there, and he read it again on the phone, slower, because he wanted me to have it, in the old man's own words, that the value of the property was to be applied to the care of his granddaughter and to the means of her communication. He said the second half of that line had been sitting in a county file since 2017, and nobody had ever spent $1 of it on a device. Then he asked whether anybody had ever told her the clause existed. I said no, I said I would. Here is the arithmetic nobody in that house had ever laid end to end. It takes 4 lines. $1,740 came in every month because of my sister's earnings record. From a cash register she ran between 2009 and 2011. $16.50 an hour, 32 hours a week, came in because of hours somebody claimed to be spending on my sister's body. 2 incomes, both of them hers. The mortgage was retired in 2011. What the household runs on is groceries, utilities, insurance, gas, the truck payment, and a lawn service my father would not give up. Both taps were shut inside 11 weeks of each other. He is 63. He took a paper application off the counter at the building supply on the state route and filled it in standing there with the pen on the chain. My brother was with him. He told me the kid at the register was maybe 22 and said they'd call. 8 years of noon mail and 30 years of framed certificates and an application for cart retrieval. And the thing he did all of it to protect, the roof, the parcel, the 4 bedrooms, and the ramp he never built, is not his to sell. Not to a developer, not to a cousin, not for $1. It has been in his daughter's name since the 11th of September 2017, recorded by his own hand. He still didn't understand that in June. He was telling people at the hardware counter he might list it in the fall. The review specialist came to the house on the 2nd of June for what the letter called an in-person contact, which means she sat in the front room with a folder on her knees and asked questions in order. He was ready for her. My father talked for 11 minutes without being asked a question. About the ramp, the lifting, his back, the nights. He said more than once that he was the one who made the hard decisions in this family, and that nobody who hasn't done it gets an opinion. Then he went and got the healthcare power of attorney. He came back holding it at chest height like a man producing a passport at a border. Signed by my sister in 2012. His name in the agent line. He said it right out loud, in the voice he uses at the counter. that it made him the decision maker, that he had been the decision maker for 14 years, and that everything in the folder on her knees had been his call to make. She let him finish. Then she asked one question: whether there had ever been a physician's determination of incapacity on file. He said he didn't know what that meant. She explained it. A springing document does nothing until it springs. The trigger is one line written into the instrument in 2012, and it requires a written determination from a treating physician that the principal cannot make her own decisions. No such determination exists in the record. The document has never been operative, not one day of the 14 years. And the presumption of capacity that applies to every adult in this state has applied to my sister the whole time. He said the word but 3 times, and did not finish the sentence after any of them. She never raised her voice. She had her hands folded on the folder, and she said it at the volume you use for reading a room number off a door. You were the representative payee. That's all you ever were. You never had the authority to refuse anything on her behalf. He looked at me. I don't know what he was looking for. Ask her, I said. She's in the next room. The refusal forms were in the packet she left. I read them at the kitchen table at 1 in the morning with a glass of water going warm beside me. A denial of a speech-generating device, dated March 2018, signed on the line marked Responsible Party. A second, October 2021. A third, February 2024. 3 evaluations by 3 clinicians, and after each one, a form declining the device on her behalf. 2 more behind them. Rehabilitation declined 2019. Rehabilitation declined 2023. On 4 of the 5, in the box for reason, in the same block capitals, patient is not making progress. I sat with that a while. It's a real phrase. It used to be the standard, and clinicians wrote it and families heard it and went home. It stopped being the standard in 2013. A federal settlement threw the improvement requirement out. Nationally. What replaced it is maintenance coverage. Care that keeps you from sliding backward, whether or not you are climbing. 13 years. 3 denials. The last one signed on a Tuesday in February of 2024, under a standard that had been dead since my sister was 21. I got up and went down the back hall with my phone light because the closet bulb has been out since the spring. Second shelf. Blanket, folded. The box under it is the size of a laptop case, and the shipping label is still legible. 30-day trial loaner. Dispatched here on the 9th of April, 2018. Return by the 9th of May in the enclosed prepaid mailer, still taped to the underside. 8 years and 2 months past due, and the factory seal unbroken. I keep bandage scissors in the outside pocket of my work bag. I cut the seal right there on the hallway floor with the phone in my teeth, and the plastic gave with a sound like a knuckle. Under the foam, the screen was dark, and the prepaid mailer was still taped to the underside with the vendor's address facing up, waiting. The apartment is a ground floor 1-bedroom in a 4-unit building on the north side of town, listed at $940 a month. I did not call the leasing office. I asked the attorney's office to handle it as a third-party placement, and the deposit and 60 days sat in their trust account with no name attached that anyone downstream would see. One condition, and it was not about money. No contact, not a call, not a porch visit, not a message through my brother. 60 days of somewhere to sleep, and the price is that I never open a door and find either of them behind it. 2 units were free at that price. I took the one on the end, because the end unit has a concrete ramp poured up to the door instead of 3 steps. Nobody was ever going to use that ramp. The woman it would have mattered to has never been inside that building and never will be. I chose it anyway. I sat in the lot, looking at that gray slope with the handrail bolted into it, and could not make myself pick the other one. It wasn't forgiveness, it was logistics. 60 days is what a housing waitlist runs in this county, and I would rather move money than spend the rest of my life being asked. They took the keys on the 22nd of July, from a property manager who had been told only that the family trust was covering the first 2 months. Neither of them knew who had paid it. My father would find out in September, from a line item on a page he wasn't meant to be reading, and by then he would have somewhere much harder to be. The meeting was set for the 29th of July at 9, in a county building with a flag in the corner, and a table long enough that the far ends had to lean in to be heard. 4 on one side, the fraud investigator, 2 banker's boxes on the floor by her chair, and nothing on the table but a legal pad. The estate attorney, with the recorded deed and the will in a folder he did not open for 40 minutes. The review specialist, hands folded, and the compliance director from the agency the visiting nurse works for, in from the regional office, who introduced himself to nobody. 4 on the other. My father in the suit from the retirement dinner, my mother with her purse in her lap and both hands on the clasp. My brother, unshaven. And the visiting nurse, who sat at the far end of her own side, 1 chair away from the rest, and kept that chair empty the whole time. My sister was at the head of the table, not along a side. At the head, chair pulled out, and her wheelchair rolled into the gap, because the woman from the county had asked where she wanted to be, and waited for the answer. The alphabet board was in front of her on its tray, the laminated one with the corner worn white, the one my mother used to bring out for company and take away when company left. The nurse was asked to confirm the dates on 24 certification forms. She got through 4. On the 5th, she stopped and put her pen down and said she wanted to say something about how those forms had been presented to her. And the compliance director from her own agency said quietly that she should. My father turned to look at her. It was the first time all morning he had looked at anyone on his own side. Across the table, my sister's hand came off the armrest and moved toward the board. I saw which letter she touched first. I didn't know yet what the word was going to be. I had brought 1 folder with 6 pages in it. When the investigator asked whether anyone else had documents to submit, I stood, walked the length of the room, and laid them across the middle of the table in the order they were issued. 6 Treasury receipts. December 2019. December 2020. December 2021. December 2022. December 2023. December 2024. $24,300, paid against a tax bill on a house I do not own and have never lived in as an adult. Each has a line near the bottom the machine fills in by itself, labeled remitter. On all 6, the remitter is me. Printed, not written. There is no version of that page where it says anything else. 1 person in that room had seen them before, all 6, every time, because for 6 years he was the one who opened the mail at noon. The last page had 1 sentence typed on it, and I set that one in front of the review specialist instead of the middle, because she was the one who would file it. It said that I do not accept, and have never accepted, being listed as a caregiver of record in any file, program, or claim belonging to any member of my family. I didn't read it out loud. I had nothing to add to it. Then I went back to my chair and sat down, and did not speak again for 2 hours and 40 minutes through my mother's crying, and my brother's questions about his name, and my father saying my name twice, in a voice I had not heard since I was small. The little recorder in the middle of the table clicked and started a new file. Nobody had asked my sister for anything. Her hand came off the tray and went past the alphabet board to the stack she had kept under her elbow since 9 o'clock and pushed. 6 orange notebooks, the cheap kind off the drugstore rack, slid 8 inches across the table and stopped against the investigator's legal pad. He opened the top one the way you open something you expect to be nothing. Then he stopped. The date was already on the page, printed at the top at the factory, before anybody in my family ever touched it. That is the kind I bought. A page a day, dated, because my sister can hold a pen against her palm for about 4 words before her hand gives out. And I did not want her spending one of them on what day it was. January 1st, 2021. 2 words under it in a hand that drags to the right. She came. 2nd page, she came. 3rd page, she came. 4th page, blank. His thumb sped up. You could hear it. The paper going faster. The tick at the corner of each sheet. Monday through Thursday, ink. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, nothing. Not a mark, not a line. Week after week for 5 years, across 6 notebooks, on dates a machine in Ohio had printed before any of it happened. The review specialist said, quietly, that those blank days were shift days. 312s, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, on the neuro floor, 40 minutes each way. My mother started to say the word scribbles and got as far as the first sound of it. Out in the hall, a cart went by with a bad wheel, and that sound had the room to itself for 11 seconds, while nobody in it said anything at all. The investigator laid the notebooks alongside the login report, and after that, the morning was arithmetic. The blank days in the notebooks are Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. The timesheets my mother submitted claimed 32 hours a week of hands-on care, and the blocks she claimed fall Monday through Thursday, the exact evenings the notebooks say somebody else came. The login report puts her badge at her desk downtown on 91 of those days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, clocked in. At the same hours she had written down that she was bathing her daughter. 91 days. My brother approved every one of them. 24 certification forms carry the nurse's signature, and all 24 describe a hospital bed, set against a wall it has never been on, in a room she had told a compliance director an hour earlier that she had entered maybe 11 times in 4 years. The 3 denial letters are my father's, 2018, 2021, 2024, and each gives the same reason on the same line. Patient is not making progress. The estate attorney read the line out, and then read out the year a federal court threw that standard away. 2013. Then he opened the folder he had not opened all morning. The deed was recorded in September of 2017. The house has been my sister's for 8 years. The will attaches a condition to it, in her grandfather's own words, that the value of the property be used for her care and for her ability to communicate. The man who filed that deed correctly, on time, at the county office, drove home afterward and told all 4 of us the house was his. He knew in 2017. My mother knew in 2018. My brother knew in 2020. The nurse knew from her first signature, and the person who had known the longest, 15 years of it, was at the head of the table with her hand back on the board, spelling something none of us could see yet. Her hand moves at about 1 letter every 7 or 8 seconds, when a room is quiet. When it is not, slower. L-A-T. The county woman read each letter as it was touched. Flat, no encouragement in her voice, the way you read numbers off a meter. T-H-E-M-S-T-A-Y. My mother made a sound. G-I-V-E-M-E-T-H-E-P-A-P-E-R. Nobody moved. The recorder ran. Under the table, my father's shoe kept finding the same spot on the floor, and I watched my sister's finger climb back to the top row and start again, and there was no tremor in it anywhere. L-L-S-I-G-N. 4 minutes and some seconds for 9 words. Let them stay. Give me the paper. I'll sign. I put my hands flat on my knees under the table. The room went on being a room. Somebody's chair creaked, and somebody swallowed, and the flag in the corner did not move at all. She thought it was her. 15 years of hearing it at that table. The van, the lift, the ramp that never got built, the $400 cushion, the bills, always said out loud in front of her, and never once explained to her. She had added it up the only way she was ever given to add it up, and the number she got was that the house had to go back so the rest of them could stop drowning. She was giving away the only thing her grandfather ever managed to put in her name, to buy her father out of a room he had walked into on his own. 15 years, she had been carrying the bill for all of it, in a body that cannot get itself a glass of water. Nobody had ever set that down in front of her and taken it off her, and every single person on that side of the table let her finish spelling it before anybody said a word. My father was nodding. That is the part I will not be putting down. He was already nodding at the 4th letter before she was halfway through. The estate attorney did not raise his voice. He never once did, all morning. He slid the paper back across to her side, turned so it faced her, and set 2 fingers on the corner of it, the way you steady something for someone whose hands are busy. It won't stop it, he said, and it was never yours to trade. He explained it in the plainest sentences I have ever heard a lawyer use. The referral is not a debt. Nobody can pay it off. The house was hers in 2017, which is exactly why the 6 years of taxes were paid by a woman who does not own it, and exactly why every form signed against her care since then is a document about property that belongs to the person it was signed against. Giving it away now would not close a single one of those files. It would just open one more. Then he said the other half of it, still quiet, still to her and not to the room, that the paper had been wrong about her for 8 years, and that the correction did not need her permission, and that the only signature anybody in that building actually needed from her was the one saying she understood what was already hers. Her hand stopped over the board for the length of one breath. That was all. One breath. My father said her name then, for the first time in the meeting, in the voice he uses when the check engine light comes on. My mother said something about how she had always said that girl understood every word. The compliance director capped his pen, and the small click of it went down that table like a chair falling over. Her finger went back up. I-counted. The county woman read it and waited. My sister was not finished. IALWAYS. 5 years of Mondays in a stack by the investigator's elbow. And that was the first sentence she had ever spoken to our parents for herself. Then she reached for the pen, not the alphabet board. The pen in the grip I made out of foam pipe insulation and surgical tape that lives in the side pocket of her chair. She signed the acknowledgement of ownership. It took her most of a minute, and it came out as 5 letters in a long drag, and the estate attorney signed under it as witness and said it was a valid mark. Then she signed the 60-day notice to vacate, on the line the review specialist pointed to, on her own house. She did not look up. Not once. Not while my mother pushed her chair back. Not while my brother asked whether this was going in his file too. And not when my father said her name a second time. Louder. With the whole room listening. My mother turned to me and told me to make her look at him. She looked at you for 15 years, I said. You're the one who stopped. The investigator did not wait for the end of the week. The referral went across that same afternoon, along with the notebooks, photographed page by page, and the login report and the 24 forms. I was in the hallway by the elevators, holding a folder that was empty now, when the speech-language pathologist came out of the room with her bag over her shoulder. She had done the capacity evaluation in June, not us, nobody in my family within 100 feet of it. She had gone to the house on a Tuesday, sat in my sister's room with the door shut, and spent 4 hours and 10 minutes on it. And her report says, my sister has capacity, has had it the whole time, and has been giving reliable yes and no responses since at least the first denial letter. She stopped in front of me and pulled her bag strap up onto her shoulder and looked at me the way people look when they have decided to say a thing out loud. Whoever worked that hand for the last 15 years, she said, is the reason she can still point today. Nobody had said it in 15 years. Not one of them, not once, not at a hospital discharge or a birthday, or a table with 30 of his co-workers around it. It took a stranger with a bag on her shoulder and a 2 o'clock somewhere else. I said thank you. It came out wrong, too fast, like a nurse taking report. She got in the elevator. The doors took a long time. I stood in a county hallway with a laminated evacuation map on the wall next to me, and read the whole thing twice without seeing any of it, and my face was wet before I understood that it was going to be. The notice still had to be served. Nobody in that building had told my parents which day the deputy was coming. He came on the 4th of August, at 10 in the morning, and the whole thing took under 2 minutes. They had 60 days from the 29th of July, and they used 58 of them. And on the last morning from the cab of my car, at the curb, I watched my father tell the neighbor across the fence that this was a paperwork situation, and it would get sorted. The trailer went first in the last week at auction for less than half of what it had on it. Then the local paper ran its September court records column, 3 inches on page 11, the same paper that printed the retirement dinner photo the November before last, with the caption about 30 years of service and the sheet cake in the corner of the frame. Same paper, Same address in both. In April, the address had gone in the delinquent tax notice, under the name of the record owner, which is my sister's name. In September, it went in under his. That town read that address twice in one season, and the second time his name was next to a docket number. The permanent bar came through in the fall. Not a suspension anymore. He may not be listed as the person who receives another human being's money, anywhere, for anyone, again. The repayment order came with it, with a schedule attached, and the schedule runs longer than he has working years left. The banner from the party is still rolled up in the corner of the garage. I know because I saw it through the open door on the day the deputy came, and I did not go in. My mother signs her repayment acknowledgement by hand, every month, on a legal pad, at a folding card table, in a transitional apartment, with a ramp already at the door. She could type it. She was a payroll clerk for 19 years. But the arrangement she signed says the acknowledgement has to carry her own signature, not a printed name. And so once a month she writes out the balance and signs under it, and mails it, and starts the countdown to the next one. $164,736 in her own handwriting for 6 years of work she claimed and did not do. The timesheet packet is 9 pages. She keeps a copy in the drawer of that card table. I know that because the third party who set the lease up told me, and I did not ask anything else. My brother is on the federal exclusion list. Not fired, not fined, listed. No agency that touches a federal dollar can let him sign an approval again, and he had 11 years in and was 2 rungs from a title he used to say at Thanksgiving. It is a public list. Anyone can search it. He spent the winter applying, and the applications kept coming back the same way. And in February, he took a job, driving a route, and the visiting nurse. Her disciplinary file closed in October, and the document that closed it was the capacity evaluation. 4 hours, done properly, by somebody with no stake in it, in the room where my sister lives. 24 times that woman certified a face she had never actually looked at, and the thing that finished her was a stranger sitting down with that same face and taking it seriously for one afternoon. She surrendered her license rather than sit for the hearing. Her side of that table stayed 1 chair empty the whole morning, and it stayed that way to the end. In May, the dogwoods came out along the driveway, the whole run of it, white the whole way down to the road. The ramp is on the front now, poured concrete, wide, and by 10 in the morning, the sun has been sitting on it long enough that you can feel it through your shoes. She likes to be out there. She likes the sound the mail truck makes coming up the hill. The device is hers, bought, not borrowed. The trial unit with the 8-year-old seal on the box went back to the vendor, and this one came in June with a 60-page manual and a woman who spent 2 afternoons teaching us both to program the buttons. My sister does her own now. She hides messages in the folders for me to find on Sundays. That morning I brought her tea and sat down on the top step, and she took her time, and the little speaker on the arm of her chair said it in the flat voice she picked out of a list of 9. I want to study bookkeeping. I said the community college does the first course online, and that we would call on Monday. Then I put the new orange notebook on her lap, the first page of the new year already printed at the top, and set the pen in her grip, and she started at the corner the way she always does. The house was quiet behind us, not the quiet of somebody listening through a wall. Just a house on a hill in May, with 2 people out front, and nothing scheduled. Down at the road, the dogwood on the corner had come out heavier than the rest, and neither of us went in until the tea was gone. Let me step out of the story for a minute, if that's all right. I've thought about this for a long time now, and here is the part I keep landing on. In almost every family, there is one fact that everybody knows, and nobody will read out loud. It sits on a shelf like a notebook, somebody called scribbles. It isn't hidden, it's just agreed on. And the agreement holds until one person finally opens it in front of witnesses. The other thing is smaller, and it might be the one that matters more. In most houses, there is someone doing the actual work whose name is not on a single piece of paper anywhere. Not on the deed, not on the forms, not on the timesheets, not in the toast at the party. The paper always gets written by whoever was standing furthest from the bed. So, I want to ask you something, and I mean it as a real question, not a rhetorical one. Was there someone in your family whose work never showed up on any document? Or was there a fact in your house that everyone knew and nobody would say? Tell me about it in the comments. I read them. Not skim, read everyone, and I sit with them longer than you'd guess. Because the stories you leave down there are the ones that tell me what to work on next. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end of this one. I know it was long, and I know parts of it were hard to sit in. I'll see you in the next story.